Ukraine and Russia, they are preparing today for the first face-to-face peace talks in more than a couple of weeks. Kyiv is insisting it will make no concessions on ceding any territory as the battlefield momentum has shifted really in its favor. This comes on the heels of President Biden's overseas European trip for an emergency NATO summit and what was deemed as a major address to the world in which he continually reaffirmed his commitment to NATO and defend every country within that alliance, even to America's detriment, Kevin. And, of course, his remarks also over the weekend that seemed to indicate that he's in favor of removing Vladimir Putin from power.
Yeah, Tom, there are the 9 words Joe Biden wishes he could take back. For God's sake, this man cannot remain in power. He was speaking about Russian President Vladimir Putin. In his final hours in Poland, Joe Biden spoke those words that world leaders say could escalate the war, lengthen the war, hurt efforts to help people of Ukraine, and infuriate the leader of a superpower. Not a great end to the trip, which otherwise people were saying was a pretty good trip by Joe Biden. Joining us now is Dave Dulio, Oakland University professor of political science. Good morning, David. How are you?
I'm well, Kevin. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for joining us this morning. Now, what just on the surface, what is your take on Joe Biden's words? Why do you think he said it? Why do you think he went off prompter? What impact do you think it might have?
Well, I think that this is the latest in, let's be honest about it, a long line of maybe impromptu gaffes from Joe Biden over the years, right? He's somebody who has been known to slip up in what he says, and I think this is just another example of that. He probably said the quiet part out loud, right? You mentioned it in the open there that's probably what he really wants, but I don't think anybody in the White House wanted him to say it when he was giving that speech.
Vladimir Putin, trained by the KGB, how does he take these words when he sees the President of the United States say this man cannot remain in power?
That's the question of the day and probably of the week, and I don't think anybody really knows. If somebody was able to figure out what Vladimir Putin was thinking, we probably wouldn't be where we are right now.
It's interesting. He said a lot of things over the weekend, and his speech was, it was powerful, and he evoked a lot of things from our past, including mistakes made prior to World War II. And he said we got into that battle too late. He described this current conflict as this battle between democracy and autocracy, and that we failed to get involved prior to a couple of world wars. So we need not to make the same mistakes right now. In other words, we're getting involved militarily. It seems to be what he might have been implying here. Do you think we're going down that road too soon this time, or is he being too tough in his rhetoric, or is he right about where he should be?
Well, I think that is a question not only for the White House, but for the American public to judge. And I think it's curious language given the care that the White House has taken in deciding or debating what other aid to send to Ukraine. And a good example is a no-fly zone or fighter jets. There's been a constant care about even signaling any kind of escalation with actions like a no-fly zone or sending fighter jets. In fact, Vladimir Putin has said that he would take those actions as an escalation or even as an act of war. Yet rhetorically, the president in the last several days has maybe gotten closer to where they weren't just a week ago.
The president over the weekend, he said, and he told Americans and he told Europeans to prepare for a long conflict where we will incur significant consequences, including continuing higher prices and even food shortages. So when he said that, he also said it's the right thing to do. And I immediately thought about two things. One, a shortage of food is incredibly serious. We could be talking about maybe worldwide famine here. And secondly, why is hunger or famine or a food shortage a necessary consequence and the, quote, right thing to do for Americans?
Well, I think that's a question that only the president can answer. I think that, and it was really that comment Tom, that I was thinking about when I said, what is the American people are going to judge this, right? And I think an important question moving forward is does the public continue to back as forcefully as it is right now U.S. aid in Ukraine? I mean, increasing gas prices, increasing inflation is one thing, but if we get to a point where there's food shortages, you have to wonder, how strong the resolve of any country would be if one thing, in terms of foreign policy leads to another, really severe pain at home.
Joe Biden has been criticized for leading from behind, it's been said. He's gone out of his way not to escalate the conflict, not to upset Putin, and his approval ratings are at an all-time low. Do you think this comment he made at the end, this ad-lib, was intentional, that he might have done it for political reasons to try and turn around these approval ratings?
I don't, Kevin, and I say that because just in terms of the speed with which the White House started to walk that comment back. And they have continued to do so with surrogates that have been out there, including Secretary of State Blinken, who's reiterated the line, or I guess the policy prior to that statement from the president about it's not up to a foreign country who is in power in Russia. It's up to the Russian people. And so I think that they knew immediately that it was a mistake, an unforced error, if you will, in what was otherwise, as you mentioned, but by many thinking it was a really good speech. So I think the speed with which they started to pull it back really shows how serious of an error I think they believe it is.
Kind of odd, though. Lindsey Graham was criticized for what he said along these lines. It was in all the papers. It was on all the TV sets. For Joe Biden to essentially make a similar mistake like that, it seems odd.
I think Lindsey Graham probably took it a step further with maybe a step short of calling for the assassination of the Russian president. But I think there's a difference between those two statements.
Right. Lindsey Graham, I think you're right. I think Lindsey Graham's statement was a little more heated, but he's not the president. And even Joe Biden said the president's words matters. They can start wars. The Kremlin responds to this. They said, listen, it is not up to the president of the United States to determine who's president of Russia. That's for the Russian people. Do you think this is something that will escalate things on Russia's end of the situation, or are they going to come to realize maybe the guy just didn't know what he was talking about? Maybe he spoke off the cuff and he shouldn't. Or do they think, are they going to take this more seriously?
Well, neither one of those is a good outcome for the United States, right? I mean, but I think, I don't know if it will escalate, but I think what it does unquestionably is inject some additional uncertainty that is not helpful in this battle of Russia versus Ukraine, and even the international community trying to do what it can to stop it.
Mm. Well, yeah, it was concerning statements, just one of many gaffes, just over the weekend, let alone the many years that we've seen Joe Biden in the public eye. Dave Giulio, Oakland University, thanks so much. It's great to talk with you again.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Have a great day. We're going to get your calls coming up next. It's 1-800-859-0957, 800-859-0WJR. We're all talk on 760 WJR.